I want to start with a very philosophical and deep question. Although this is currently within the context of Brighton Fringe, and we're here at Fringe venue number 1, outdoors.
Indeed,
Brilliant Gold's
premier venue.
Do you think, it's a leading question of course, do you think it's important when you create something artistically? In your case, I first saw the reincarnation of Trinity Jim a few years ago, and this is the third of those standalone that trilogy, which is The Angel of Death Will See You Now, a rock musical. How, is it important? Because in the world at the moment, everyone's always asked, what's your purpose? What's your goals? What's your aims? There's businesses do that all the time. I would say education of kids is like, where do you want to be in life? How do we prepare you for work? What job do you want to have?
Right.
Is it important to have intentions going into something?
That's a really good question. I would have said 10 years ago, that first show that you mentioned, the reincarnation of Trinity Jin, was very purpose driven. It was very political. I was sort of wearing my heart on my sleeve at the time, and I thought, this is about, I want people to have this particular experience and I want them to think this. And as time has gone on, and with a little bit of age and wisdom creeping in, I've definitely moved away from that position. And I think this new show is much more intentionally ambiguous.
Right.
And it's just more interesting, isn't it? Art is more interesting when it's not telling you what. Is that what you mean by intention?
Well, I just think, the world of the artist is many artists. When they put the classic Les Paul, they put their paintbrush on canvas. Don't all deciding as artists what they're going to paint. Some have absolutely no idea about it.
Right.
And a very simple view, if you're an impressionist, nature works on you, and then you almost, to quote Harrison Owen, the inventor of that simulation space technique, you'd be prepared to be surprised. Whatever happens is the only thing that could happen. Wherever it starts at the right time, wherever happens is the right place, whoever comes at the right people, you can invite. You can invite yourself, you can invite others, but actually fixing the intention and the attention. And I went to a lecture years ago called the Same Needs for Life. If you say the sentence, I'm hungry, you start to feel far more hungry quickly than you really do. It's a curve. A sentence is also a prison sentence. It's got double meaning. So he's having intentions in safety or friendship. If you fix them too much, do you not become sentenced to it?
Totally. What was that that phrase? Convictions make us convicts.
Yeah.
Robert Anton Wilson thing. But it can work the other way as well. You can be enslaved by it, but equally. And my son, also very influenced by Robert Anton Wilson and Timothy Leary, in this idea of meta programming. And like Harry, my boy, he's had irritable bowel syndrome. And he's sort of learned how to just program himself out of it. He sort of goes into this hypnotic state. He does this deep belly breathing, and he's just like, I don't have those symptoms. And then he doesn't, or at least they're greatly reduced. And I think that we have a lot of power to create our own reality tunnel. This another Wilsonian idea that appears strongly in the show is, we can rebuild our perception of reality in our world and use intention to our own good.
Right, but the way you've described The Angel of Death Will See You Now in the interview I carried out with you makes me ask this question because I don't think the answer to this is the obvious one, which is that you set out with this script, someone's directed it, with such tight intentions that there isn't space for you to be surprised by it. In some ways, this is an interim interview because there's more nights to run here at Brighton Fringe. To what extent are you saying, this is what I set out to do, and I'm going to measure success based on whether I did those things or not, and I've got a clear intention of what those things are? Or is it, well, I think I've got some intentions, but I'm happy for them to change. This isn't the end of this show, so I'm going to get back to the drawing board, maybe rewrite songs, take stuff out, because I want to be surprised by the outcome, at least to an extent.
Right.
And the artists want to be like that, and not run like a corporation with mission statements that are tied down to metrics.
Right, absolutely. I mean, you can take that question on a number of levels, right? There's the intention in terms of the audience's perception of the show, and then there's my own intentions and what I want to achieve with it. And so there's something that really interesting that happened at last night's show, where we had, so our usual sound engineer wasn't available, so we had a stand-in sound engineer, and it's quite a technically complex setup. There's 6 people in a band, there's a 10-piece all-female choir who are sometimes singing up in the gods, sometimes down among people. It's quite a setup, and we were quite nervous about that. And we had a reviewer in from one of the bigger organs of reviewers who we were very keen to, make sure that it went smoothly. And I think I sort of went into that show with slightly heightened sense of sort of anxiety for those reasons. And early in the show, it sort of started to go wrong. Like the angels, their radio mic was just sort of popping and cracking and making this horrible noise, and it wasn't screwed in properly. And it was one of these weird things that happened when you're in a show and you sort of think, what should we do when something's going wrong? Should we sort of manage that within the universe, if you like, or should we just say, everybody, can we just pause for 1 minute? We just need to deal with this technical issue, and we'll be back with you shortly. And last night we were sort of in a bit of a weird state of paralysis, and at this point in the show, I'm sitting in the audience next to my son as it happened. And my wife just took the initiative, and she's usually involved with the show. She welcomes people into the show, and she knows all about it. And she just like strode up onto the stage, and the angel was in the middle of a monologue, and she sort of just quite gracefully sort of got this little stool and summoned for the angel to sit down, and she didn't break stride. She just carried on doing what she was doing. And Ruthie, my wife, sort of sat on the edge of the stage, just sort of fixing the angel wings. And at the time, that wasn't actually the problem. We were thinking, oh, thank goodness she's going to save the show. And then we're like, oh no, she thinks it's the wings, and it's not. It's just this mic thing that used to be screwed in. Anyway, so she fixed the wings and then put them back on, and then thankfully actually worked out under the pressure of being on the stage what the problem was and fixed it. And at that same moment, the angel was singing a song where there are slides appearing where the audience is supposed to sing along, and the slides went wrong in that exact same moment, and it just felt like this thing that was just, there was all these multiple pileups, and something really interesting happened where I just sort of turned and glanced at Harry and just smiled and just sort of surrendered to the chaos of the moment. And for all of the planning and preparation that we've done, all of that was just out of my control at that point, and all you can do is just go, okay, this is the way that this one turned out. And I've been sort of thinking about it overnight, and it's one of the beautiful things I think about being theatre is that you want it to go well, obviously, and when it does go well, that's amazing. But when it doesn't go well, you really learn something about yourself and about your comrades.
And that's Harrison Owens. We hope to be surprised. Whatever happens is the right thing that happens, and if the fixture and take that too much, like my intention is that nothing like that ever happens, and you're not prepared to improvise.
Right.
You won't improvise. You're going to a place of anger, denial, trauma, and you'll say it's a failure.
Absolutely.
So is that you? Is the intention when you go in not that fixed? I mean, you might have dreams and hopes, but they don't sound like I'm going to be kind of criticised. You didn't put enough plan Bs in place. You didn't, do this tight enough.
Yeah.
You might get that sort of top Western theatre, but this is never going to happen.
Right, absolutely. I mean, I don't think that we did plan tightly enough for Plan B. About a week before the first show, I sort of suggested that we do some improv training, let's practice improvising in character. And we sort of decided that it was a bit too late and vague to start thinking in those terms. I mean, there is a very tightly intention. It's not a loose show at all. There is a very, very strict order of things that need to happen. And if you go, and I have sort of wondered, if somebody says the wrong line in the wrong place, I'm really not sure that we have a plan B to know how to respond when that happens. And yet, in 2 of the 5 shows that we've done so far, we've had technical issues and maybe the odd forgotten line or something, and it's not been a problem.
So are you saying here, in the sort of helicopter view of semi-nature and Brighton, taking breath, those things that happen are all right?
I think they're not only all right, but in some some of the feedback that we had from the show last night was some of the best that we've had. Total strangers. It was the first standing ovation that we've had. It was lovely. But strangers just coming up afterwards and saying how much it moved them and how much it meant to them, how affected they were by it. And I think the mistakes, almost the imperfections, maybe warm people to it a little bit more. You sort of, they see your vulnerability, and that's really relatable, than some sort of super slick Disney performance that's like a bit boring because it's so perfect.
Yeah, and an old friend of mine and colleague, Professor John Besson, who's written about design, innovation, and so on, introduced me to a concept. I think he called it design specs, which is also true of organisations. You're going to get fired, your car's going to get marked, people who do this, that. and the other, so everyone kind of sets their design space really small. And with respect to people who really are in bad positions where they have no design space, most of us, if we push the walls, they tend to move out further.
Right.
And so if you do tight attention, you're not going to be disappointed by it, because all you need to do is allow the walls to come out and you improvise in that space.
Yeah, right. Nice. And I think that I incorporated that a bit more into the writing process as well this year. We sort of touched on this in a previous conversation. This idea of just creating these characters, person in a problem, in a place with a problem, and just allowing them to rub around together and see what happens. And because of that, this show turned out very different to the previous ones, and it's much stronger and really lovely serendipitous things came about because of that, and things that I don't feel like I can take credit for, things that happen in the script. And I wrote the script, and yet I don't feel like I really owned those ideas because they just sort of emerged.
Right. Now, I guess you've got like classical intentions, like this is you'd like to cover our costs, you'd like to sell tickets. You don't want the reviewer to write bad stuff. There's a few more nights ago. How's that going? Acknowledging there are intentions. We want to put stuff in the public domain, pay money, want to pay the mortgage or whatever.
Yeah.
How's it going?
So, the critical reception has been astonishing, really, so far. An amazing review by your good self, a lovely one in the Brighton and Hove News, some audience reviews that have come through. Not all glowing, but the vast majority are, and that's, I think, the balance that you want. If you make something that everybody loves, that's probably not really that interesting as a piece of work. You sort of want to divide opinions to some extent, but you want to be on the majority side,
But just as we've got a screaming baby now, over there, and that's all right, and so on, and that wasn't part of our intention in the quiet garden. And ultimately, then, if you're selling tickets, you get good reviews. Was it in your intention to go, well, I hope we get at least one bad one that we can learn from?
A really fruity bad one that you can use on the poster in a good way.
You haven't had one of them.
Well, let's see how Broadway Baby can see.
Broadway Baby, you're worried about that, are you?
Well, they were there last night when the show was going wrong, and of course it's in the back of your mind. Who knows? We'll see. But
let's say you do get one that's finished. They said, this went wrong and that's not good enough.
Right.
Will you take that and embrace it, or are you actually going to go,
as I've been reflecting on it overnight, who knows if and when that happens?
Are you okay about it?
It hasn't happened yet. I will say that previous critical reviews have landed quite hard. They're not nice to be criticised for something. There's a sense of injustice. There's a sense that you've worked so hard for something, and sometimes things are out of your control, and and just the ego. I wrote this thing, and my name's all over it, and I'm promoting it, and I'm very centrally in it. And so my ego is on the line, and if people criticize that, then of course, ego death is not a fun thing. But as I said, that sort of moment that I had last night with Harry, where we just sort of looked at each other and smiled, just surrendered to it. I do feel now that maybe I've had enough critical reviews that I think that I'd be okay with the next one to come along, because I know that again it's proportionally. If it was all terrible, I would take that as an important lesson, but I think I am in more of a position to roll with it now.
But I guess also, it's a bit of horrible corporate present for Amazon and Google. They call it the growth mindset, and it's taught in schools now. The growth mindset, I think, is only in the preserve of billionaires that have got nothing better to do with their money. But the kind of spirit behind it is you design to fail. You put products out there that you sort of hope are going to get bad reviews, because by breaking it, you learn from it.
Right.
But actually, in the arts, we've got dreams. We're vulnerable human beings. You'd rather, I guess, all that break in the rehearsal rather than in front of the public.
Indeed, yes, yeah, exactly. And so generally speaking, we've been really delighted with how it's going. And then most importantly, just about as a company, I think you had a lovely line in your review that this is a show with community at its heart. And it really is. There's about sort of 20 odd people involved in this in various ways. And it's just all these people giving their time so freely and generously of their talents, and it's absolutely astonishing to me that so many people are willing to do that, and that's what it's about, really, far more so than critical reception.
So when you create big venue shows, you put lots of energy in and so on, you create a community around what people are giving of their time. You're trying to achieve a professional show, and the reviews suggest you do. But also, you don't just want your audience to come in as consumers, having paid their tenner. and then gone home again.
No.
So you've got an intention that you do want to create as a classic bit of, the philosophical language that's good into a shared experience.
Right.
This can't happen without the audience, and you acknowledge that. It's very interactive.
Yeah.
The fourth wall's down. It doesn't do the audience down in any way. No one's humiliated. You don't say a single thing, put them down. There's some comedy can be edgy like that, but you absolutely seem to have had an intention going in, James, that this needs to be a shared experience or it fails.
Yeah, very much so. Yes, I think that's the case. And you wrote something in the last few days that really made me thinking about the audience's expectations and so on. Where you wrote a piece about like, if you've had like an audience review that's 5 stars, say, should you put that on your poster? Are you like, if the show is still sort of a little bit in development?
And if you don't agree with that,
are you overselling it? And we did do that, just like with cards on the table. We did get a 5-star audience review, and we did stick it on the poster.
from your son.
It was from a perfect stranger, so I do feel happy doing that. But it really made me think, like, is it okay? Like, what is our responsibility to the audience? But also, I think that we have a responsibility to ourselves to get bums on seats, and it's not an expensive ticket. It's the same price as a show that we went to the other day, which just is a poetry show with just a microphone and no setup. And we've been rehearsing for months and months with lots and lots of technology involved and lots of overheads. And so I'm okay. I'm okay with perhaps slightly erring on the side of like over promotion. I mean, I think it's really good. Like this, but that's my perception. I totally understand that other people might not.
So what I'm hearing is, and actually, I quite like a model from Rudolf Steiner, a philosopher, about the threefold nature of society, having an economic sphere, a kind of spiritual, cultural sphere, and a sphere that's kind of government, of equality and rights. And it roughly maps onto kind of fraternity. In the economic sphere, we should work in partnership.
Right.
And in the kind of educational, cultural sphere, it's about freedom. Which is why having businesses, so we give you money if you put logos on our stuff. That's not right for the cultural sphere. And that the sphere of kind of technically sphere of government, and so on, is about fairness, is about equality. But just mapping that on, it feels to me you've got a clear economic intentions. You don't want to lost soul to fix. You do want to get good reviews because that's commercial. You've got technically, you don't want it to go wrong. You've got all of that stuff. In the cultural sphere, you've definitely got social intentions about wanting to create a shared community here too. But politically, you think there's unfairness and injustice in the world. It was there in your first show.
Yeah.
You've definitely got intentions here. We could call them, they're definitely cultural, they're social, they're also political, about justice and so on. The failure of government to uphold that. So I'm going to use art to say certain things. So you've had intentions going in there. I don't know how strong they are. And how's it going?
Yeah, well, I mean, absolutely, and educationally as well. As you know, pedagogy is strong in the show. I'm an educator called James. I play
You're
an
restless.
educator.
That's not an
James.
economic thing. It's that you want the audience to be impacted. You'd like social change to result.
Yeah, absolutely. And in the beyond the fringe, in my professional life, it's going pretty well. I've been working to agitate to bring about change with the education system, starting to move into more of a political space. I'm now like working with governments and advising governments, and working widely with schools all over the world. People are listening to what I say to some extent. I'm not there yet. There's a long distance left to run, but absolutely. And I see this as of a piece with that. Like it is a part of this. It's very different approaches, but it's part of the same idea that it's about community. It's about bringing people together from all different walks of life and having people. I mean, this is such a shattered, fragmented, polarized world.
But when I hear that, I mean, I'm happy to say good for you, and that's great, and good for us. But the art itself, the piece that you've created, has that intention. I mean, you wouldn't want people to go away. Even if you've got close ideas, that was a laugh. That's all it was, and go back to the way I was. You do want, there's words in the script, the way you do it, you take them to the ultimate question of life and death.
Yeah.
Are you living your wretchedly content life but not doing what you're there to do?
Right.
Is that coming across through this work? Are you artistically going, no, I need to rewrite it, the songs aren't strong enough? Yes, it is doing.
No, I do think it's doing that, and I've had that feedback from people. There are people who've seen the show who said it's making me take stock and reevaluate aspects of my life. Myself as well, without wanting to give away any spoilers, is very close to the bone and basically arguing and justifying my existence from something very close to my own existence, and it falls short, and I think that it's healthy to think that you want to sort of strive to do better and be better and to try to put a dent in the universe, as Steve Jobs said, and just to try to not just consume the culture, but also to influence it.
I think it's funny that you quoted Steve Jobs and not some other great politician, but that's the world we're in at the moment. My final then question to you is an accusation.
Okay.
It's a strong accusation too. It's an accusation that as a piece of art culture that's come from your free creativity, you are really intentional. You've got stuff you want it to happen musically, that economically. You're quite intentional. You don't want to get no audience. You want to get boost reviews. You don't want it to go wrong. And you're thinking about plan Bs. And then in the kind of political sphere, you've got political agenda here. You've got stuff you want to come across.
Completely.
But that's all laced with Harrison's open space. Despite you could say mea culpa on all that, there's a bit of you also that in a good way doesn't care so much that you're obsessed with it. He's prepared to let it go. He's prepared to risk it going wrong so it gets better next. You're not absolutely intentional here, and that opens space for possibility.
Right. Well, thank you for that, because I'm very happy.
I thought I was in.
Well, you softened it at the end, so I'm happy for that accusation to land.
Yeah.
Yes, it's intentional, and yes, there's an element of it which is like a glass is intentional, isn't it? It's intended to hold water, but there's space in it for other things to go in there, and so holding some sort of an open space which is intentional and yet has some degree of freedom.
And it can't be fringe work, can it? If it's so polished and so productized, then it's mainstream. It's not on the edge of something,
right?
Which is less predictable.
Yeah, right.
Oh, you don't.
Yes, and so it's interesting to see where this might take us. We're very keen to take it to other fringe festivals. I don't know whether it would have a commercial life. We're all working full-time, family commitments and all that.
I didn't mean you.
We're able to go beyond a sort of a fringe status.
I don't mean you were going for West End. I was saying that as the thing is in itself, definitely got us entrepreneurial smart going.
Yeah, we want to sell tickets. Speaking of which, there's so we've got a show on Wednesday.
Commercial break now. It's the first time I'm looking at the camera. Yeah, go on.
So most of the shows are in the Unitarian church, as you're aware, and there's lots of footfall, right? Because we're on the main drag here, where the people think of the Fringe, they think of this street, don't they, and this cafe.
Well, biggest congregation I've had in you. May not be true.
And Ironworks is, off the back of London Road, and to the extent that there is footfall around London Road, it's not the footfall that you might expect to go and see a rock musical. And so, and it's a much bigger venue, and there's still quite a number of seats available for that.
Yeah, and it's a highly reviewed show. It's met that intention, but there are still tickets.
There are still tickets available. So
and you'd like them to be sold before.
We very much would. So we've got one next Wednesday at the Ironworks, face to camera, and then two final ones. We have a matinee and an evening show on Sunday, June the 1st, back in the Unitarian.
So this is in Brighton, the Brighton Fringe, and in case you're not watching this at that time, you watch it later. This intention of this used to be a kind of timeless conversation, and hopefully the catch up will be again around that too. You've got plans for us going forwards beyond this, or you just don't like bury it?
Well, we're filming the last couple. No, not burying it at all. Like I think that there's further distance left to run in terms of just like I've had a few ideas, not huge ones, but a few things that I think we could do to tighten up the show.
So with the only spoiler, let's bring this to a close. Is this is not going to the door of death, is it? It's going back to Earth at the end.
Yes, I think we're sort of just circling around in Death's waiting room and just in the endless mystery of purgatory.
James, thanks for talking to Fringe Review.
Thank you for having me.